Now imagine a phone getting 6 years of security updates, a clean software like a Pixel, and a telephoto lens for under 1,200 ringgit. Sounds too good to be true, right? Well, it kinda is. But not for the reasons you think. Because here's what makes the CMF Phone 2 Pro one of the weirdest phones out there. Now in the box, there is the TPU case, a USB-C to USB-C cable, and a very unique SIM ejector pin similar to last year's model. Now apparently there is a 33-watt charging brick included, but only in India. So if you're from India, good for you, my friend, and congratulations, because your box is heavier than ours, because right here in Malaysia, there's no charger in the box. So what I did was to pick the best color out of all of the options. So yes, I went with this white color, which had a two-tone white and grey, or a cement-like color at the bottom. Now while I did prefer it to be all white, but it is something that I got used to when I use it daily, and I kind of fell in love with this overall cement-like finish. But on top of that, the real saving grace for me is the fact that it has a very nice matte texture-like finish. The aluminium camera rings is something that I really like, but because of that, the phone did wobble when I type it on a surface, just like a table on a roadside mamak stall. Then you know the spinning wheel thingy, which is available at the bottom, similar to last year's CMF Phone 1. Now this was like a virgin because it took me days in order for me to open it, where I had to use this older screwdriver from the CMF Phone 1 in order to pry it open, and only then it started becoming a bit loose. Just like a virgin, I guess. But more on the accessories later on in this video. Now on paper, the phone weighs about 185 grams, but to be honest, it felt even lighter than that. So much lighter than last year's phone, which of course is a very good thing. So because of the weight of the phone felt very nice in the hands, especially on the sides of the phone too, surely different from any other smartphones that I've reviewed this year. And then the screws at the back. There's no way for you to remove them, because if you don't own last year's CMF Phone 1 or even this year's accessories, it doesn't come in a box, so you're just stuck with the screws at the back of the phone. What's different now is that number one, this new CMF Phone 2 Pro doesn't have an interchangeable back panel like how it was on this CMF Phone 1. Now according to Nothing or CMF, it was a very niche thing where majority of the people didn't even buy the additional cases, so they ended up bundling it together with the phone for free. So being upset with the huge loss of money, they said no, you all wanted customization but didn't pay for it, so bye-bye. So no more interchangeable covers. Number two, there's the new accessory called the universal cover, which needs to be bought and applied separately, and only then you'll be able to use the other accessories, including the MagSafe-like capabilities too, like the wallet, which also acts as a kickstand, and the interchangeable lenses too. So only the lanyard works without that particular universal cover, but to me that was fine to a certain extent. I just thought to myself, you know what, I'll just get the universal cover, right? But what's worst is that universal cover is not available in Malaysia and in many other countries too, because Nothing only decided to include that to be on sale only on Europe and India. So the only way for us to get those is to travel in these countries. Fantastic decision, CMF. But hey, it is IP54 rated, so let's turn around and look at the display of the phone. Now this comes with a 6.77-inch 120Hz adaptive refresh rate that goes from 60 to 120Hz with a full HD flexible AMOLED flat display. That comes with a pre-applied screen protector, which reminded me of Poco's F7 Ultra screen protector. Not the best quality, but like every other Nothing phone, what's lovely is that this also has symmetrical bezels, although quite thick like my eyebrows. Just like the Google Pixel 9a, but as it was with that particular phone, it was something that you would get used to when you use the phone daily. Now it comes with also 1300 nits of HBM brightness, which is 50% higher than last year's CMF Phone 1, and 3000 nits of peak HDR brightness. But then CMF decides to slap on a Panda glass on this, so durability wise that is very questionable. But the display indeed is very beautiful, whether or not when it comes to watching videos with very nice colors and skin tones on the videos too, or just using the phone every single day. But the speakers sucks. Just a single mono speaker at the bottom, so if you happen to watch videos while holding the phone on a landscape orientation on one hand like this, your finger will block the only speakers of the phone, so you are technically muting your videos. Now, nothing phones are always known for their best software experience, just like the Pixel phones. This has a very clean and minimal software experience with absolutely no bloatware, and this is totally game-changing because getting a clean and a smart UI at this pricing is like getting 20,000 new subscribers within this month. By the way, if you guys are enjoying this video so far, do give this video a nice big thumbs up, and a subscription would be lovely too. Thank you very much in advance. Now, the reason why this is clean is because the custom widgets that you can nicely adjust within the UI itself, which number one looks aesthetic, and number two very useful because the customization of the widget sizes for the menu was nice. And then the monochrome theme, while people might have different opinions about this, but I love it because this feels normal to the eyes rather than being bombarded by all those colorful icons around the homepage. And I also love how while you're downloading an app halfway, it will show the default app's color, and once it's done, it will turn the app icon into a monochrome theme again. A small but cool detail that I've done. Then typing and the haptic feedback on the phone was really nice, but it doesn't end there because now it has the essential key right at the bottom of the power button, which is basically an AI button that allows you to take screenshots of a particular screen and then save it with a written note or even a voice note. Now, how useful is this daily? I don't know. Who is this feature for? I don't know. But is it something cool and new? Yes. Now, the reason why I said I don't know is because when this feature was first introduced in the Nothing Phone 3A, I was excited at first. But I ended up not using it when I was using the phone daily. So do let me know if this is indeed helpful for you, my friend, because speaking of screenshots, I don't know who asked for that, but the idea of having the screenshot option at the bottom when you go through the recently open apps was quite annoying, as I tend to hit that to close the apps, which other Android phones gives that as an option. So do also let me know if this screenshot button at the bottom of the recently open apps is more useful than having it to close your apps instead. Now, CMF has promised 3 years of OS update with 6 years. Yep, 6 years of security updates. Now, getting a mid-ranger to touch 6 years of security updates, making this an amazingly reliable smartphone. But then again, the question remains the same in my previous videos. Like, how many people actually use their phone more than 4 years? The answer is majority. Because don't almost everybody changes their phone 2 to 3 years? Especially you're paying for a phone within this price range, because we kind of change our phones more often than we change our Wi-Fi passwords, right? Then also worth mentioning is the fact that this phone has NFC compared to the previous CMF Phone 1. There's also an SD card slot up to 2TB, which was also really nice. But on top all of that, CMF has embedded a new processor to make your experience even smoother. Now, this has the MediaTek 7300 Pro chipset, which on paper is 10% more than last year's MediaTek 7300 chip on the CMF Phone 1. Now, this 10% might not sound like a huge difference because there isn't a huge difference. But the software and the overall usage or the UI optimization did feel way more smoother when using the phone daily. The gaming performance was also great as before, with the settings shown on the screen over here, specifically on Genshin Impact, but it also felt really nice to game on due to how it feels really nice in the hands as mentioned earlier. But I did notice one huge difference compared to last year's phone, which is the better and the faster image processing on this particular phone. So this phone comes with 3 rear lenses instead of just 2 last year, a 50-megapixel main with no OIS and an 8-megapixel ultra-wide. And then there's also a new 50mm telephoto lens with no OIS as well that gives up to 2 times optical zoom and a 16-megapixel front camera. Now, the ultra-wide lenses on the 15mm focal length did perform great with no distortion on the edges as seen in this sample photos, and the balance of the highlights and the shadows for an indoor shot was also nicely balanced. Now, there is a color shift between the ultra-wide and the main lenses, which tends to happen for a more budget-friendly smartphones, where the main lenses was a bit more saturated as seen side by side with the ultra-wide lenses. But the main and the telephoto lens did not have any color shift, which was really great. Now, speaking of which, the new telephoto lens did perform well, where it can also zoom digitally up to 5 times zoom or 120mm, but I would start to hold back beyond that 10 times zoom or the 240mm focal length, because the 20 times zoom images looks as blurry as Arsenal's chances of winning the Premier League. Now the rear portrait mode for humans was best at 24mm focal length. Beyond that, you'll see some level of color shift, and the age detection was not one of the best at the edges of the hair. But what's interesting is that it did a very good job for objects as seen in this different focal lengths with a more challenging shape. Now as for selfie photos indoors, that was really excellent. But when you go outdoors, you'll need to be aware of where the light is shining towards to get the best results. Then the nighttime photos on the ultrawide lenses were decent. As long as your hands are super steady, since not only this ultrawide lenses but the main lenses also do not have OIS as mentioned earlier, and while you can get some decent shots outdoor. But if you're taking photos at night in a restaurant with a mix of lighting, the color balance is very badly processed and the image processing could be a bit confusing on which to make white. And the images weren't as sharp as well, no matter which lenses that you choose. And the color shift was also present for the portrait mode at night, similar to the daytime shots as well, whether or not it's for humans and for objects as well, so keep that in mind. Then as for selfie photos at night, it was decent, but only when you turn on the flash, you know, when it turns the whole screen to white and bright. Otherwise, you'll get a more pasty image quality. Now, YouTube does compress the overall quality of the photos, and for that, you can check out our website for a proper screenshot of these photos at www.adamlobo.tv, including a written review of this and all of our videos, which also has some daily tech news over there too, so links to the website will be down below. Then as for video, the rear lenses can record up to 4K 30fps, but only for the main and the telephoto 2x zoom, because the ultra-wide lens can only record up to 1080p 30fps, but the 5x zoom video was still decent. However, the max 8x zoom video wasn't as good. So overall, the telephoto and the main lenses for videos were obviously better, indeed very comparable compared to the recently reviewed Vivo V50 Lite when it comes to the overall video quality. Then as for the front video, it also maxes out at 1080p 30fps, but the image stabilization was really good. At night, the ultra-wide video was not as great as the main lenses as expected. Even for the telephoto video, the quality was quite good, but you can expect a horrible front video recording at night, and here is a vlogging test for you to hear how the audio recording sounds. Alright, this is a vlogging test using the front camera of the CMF Phone 2 Pro. So this is an audio test. Dynamic range wise, as you can see, it looks pretty overexposed. But if you're taking photos, it's fine. I do find that when it comes to videos, this is what exactly you would get. But I have to say that I am a little surprised by the overall image stabilization using the front camera, even though it's just using 1080p for this price range. That is fine, but let me know what you guys think of the audio in the comment section below. Now strangely, the battery spec remained the same as last year, but it's still a huge 5000 milliamps of battery with 33 watts of charging with 5 watts of reverse wired charging. Now in this so-called budget segment, the Vivo V50 Lite, as mentioned earlier, kills the CMF Phone 2 Pro with a huge 6500 milliamps of battery and 90 watts of fast charging. So in this particular department, that wins this phone altogether. On top of that, I was only getting about 3.5 to almost 4 hours of screen on time when I was at 17% battery life, which is plain sad. Because at first I thought it was a software update that I was missing, but nope, it was still updated to version 3.2. So the only saving grace is the fact that it took me about 1 hour to reach from 0 to 100%. But as mentioned, compared to the likes of the Vivo V50 Lite earlier, this phone gets an RKO from that. So for a phone that costs only 1199 ringgit, which by the way is only 100 ringgit more compared to the CMF Phone 1 when it was first launched, where this 8GB of RAM and 256GB storage is the only variant available here in Malaysia. Now overall, this phone feels value for the money and recommendable with almost a 7 out of 10 on almost everything. But there are still two questions that needs to be answered by CMF. What is the reason behind naming this the Pro? Will there be a CMF Phone 2 also in the future? Will that be a cut-short version of this? And if yes, how will CMF place that phone then? Number 2, as mentioned, why aren't the universal cover and the other accessories available globally? Is it because the average smartphone buying price is lower in these regions? Or is it because people like customization on those regions only, making their phone look like it's theirs on those regions? Well, I guess we all have to wait and see. Now, speaking of the Vivo V50 Lite earlier, check out that video review over here if you haven't done so.